Hello, my name is Vishwa. I am a consulting engineer at Cisco. I work in the CX organization in the Global Enterprise Solutions Architecture team. We are talking about server profile policies today, and specifically the SNMP policy. We'll review a couple of slides and a short demo um, after a very quick introduction. Intersight server profiles give us the ability to configure a lot of policies as part of the UCS server platform type. There are 38 of these policies that we can configure as UCS server policies. But of these 38, these 9 policies highlighted here not only apply to domain policies, but also to standalone C-Series servers. Um, These policies are covered in a different video, but for our purposes in this video, we will be talking about the SNMP policy specifically, which is highlighted on the slide here from a UCS server profile perspective. The SNMP policy, SNMP stands for Simple Network Management Protocol. This policy allows us to remotely monitor devices on which it is configured. SNMP policy includes agents which reside on the hardware, like the FIs, the chassis, servers, etc. And when configured, give us the ability to be able to send out fault and alert information in the form of SNMP traps from said managed devices. This alert and fault information can be anything ranging from monitoring of the hardware, unsecure hardware, configuration issues, all the way through towards environmental conditions. The policy supports various versions such as SNMP version 1, V1, SNMP V2, which includes V2C, and SNMP V3, which is the most secure. Coming to the purpose of the SNMP policy, when the SNMP policy is configured properly, the traps that are sent out to external SNMP management software can help us set up alarms for various conditions. We can send out email notifications when certain signatures or behaviors are encountered. We can also create tickets to break fix certain issues. Is the SNMP policy required? Yes, this policy has to be deliberately configured on Intersight Managed Mode to properly be able to send out traps for the configured managed devices to the external SNMP management software. There is a small point to note here. Intersight Managed Mode still allows us to continue and create a server profile with or without an SNMP policy configured on it. But it is highly recommended to create SNMP policy if we want to use this functionality in the future on a server. This is because Intersight Managed Mode has moved away from using default policies. The default policy options are not available anymore. This behavior applies to most policies in Intersight Managed Mode, and we will specify in detail for every policy as we create more videos in this playlist. It is highly suggested to create a policy if we so choose to use its functionality in the future on a server. The recommendation here, if possible, is to use the SNMP v3 version, which is the most secure and recommended version of the SNMP policy. Please reach out to your network administrator to get the appropriate information such as usernames and passwords, trap destinations, community strings, etc. Once it's configured on an FI managed ecosystem, from a server policy perspective, we may choose to SSH into the Fabric interconnect. and use certain CLI-based outputs to verify if a particular trap or user has been configured. In the example as shown on the screen, once we enter scope monitoring, we can do a show SNMP trap to see if there's a trap that's configured. To see if there are specific users that were configured, we can do a show SNMP user. And if you were to identify what community string for security purposes was configured, then you can choose to use show SNMP community string. There are various policies that we can configure on a server profile template. The SNMP is a direct attached policy to the server profile template. All the other policies here on the screen will be covered in subsequent videos. Let's look at a quick demo on how to create the SNMP policy on Intersight.com. Once you've logged into Intersight.com, make sure that the drop-down is set to Infrastructure Services, because this is where you would define the pools and policies that we need for the running of the infrastructure. For this video, we're concerned about the policies, the SNMP policy to be specific, so let's select the Policies tab here. Create a new policy. Since we're talking about UCS server profile policies, let's select that particular platform type and select the SNMP policy here. Let's give it a meaningful name. And hit next. Once we've hit next and this screen appears, make sure to select the Enable SNMP Radio button, and you will see that you have an option to create V2C only or V3 only or both V2C and V3 options here. This is where you would choose an appropriate option that corresponds to your needs and requirements in your organization. V3 is the most recommended, most secure SNMP option that we can choose from. Let's see if we can configure a V3 only option here. For system contact, I'm going to put in my information. System location, RTP. Let's create an SNMP user and also see if we can create an SNMP trap. We don't have an official trap destination here, so we're going to use some random IP address for this purpose. The SNMP user that we're creating will be a username. We're going to select the authoritative privilege here. And then here the authentication type will be SHA. Let's give it a password. The privacy type should be AES, and the privacy password we may choose. The V3 option we're using here is the most secure option, not only with the username and password, but also with the ability to authenticate privately and encrypt the traffic. The security level we're choosing here is authenticate private. The need for the password is not there anymore. If you choose the non-private option, the authentication type SHA is for using secure hashing algorithm on the data and the certificate files. The privacy type we're using here is the AES encryption type. This is for encrypting the payload that contains the SNMP traps or messages being sent out by the agent. This is a 128-bit encryption, and the privacy password we are creating here is the key to the 128-bit encryption that we're using. Now we will click Add. We've just created an v3 only SNMP user. Let's go ahead and try and create an SNMP trap destination. The SNMP version here is v3. We've selected the enable option on the top. The username is whatever we've created. The trap destination will be a fake one, but let's just try and give it something for the sake of configuring stuff. And then once you've added the trap destination of the user, just go ahead and hit the create button. You should see the green check mark on the top right. This is where you would see a successfully created option here. And when you go back to the policies listing, there it is, the test SNMP policy. So this test SNMP policy, if you look at the platform type, applies to UCS server, UCS chassis, and UCS domain. Everybody. So that's how you would create an SNMP policy on intersight.com from a server profile policy perspective. So that was a brief video on how to create the SNMP server policy in IMM. Please stay tuned for more videos on other policies in the IMM Expert Series video playlist on youtube.com.